Today, I have the distinct honor and pleasure of welcoming Harrisburg's own police commissioner, Mr. Thomas Carter, who is a resident of Harrisburg for years, a mainstay, a young man that I actually saw walking the beat for years when I would visit my grandmother's home in uptown Harrisburg. No one was allowed on 6th Street. As you know, if you're in that 35 to 50 age range, you know 6th Street was one of those where your parents told you couldn't go up there and so forth and so on. But every once in a while, we would go to the corner store and peek out left and right down 6th Street. And at the time, patrolman Officer Carter was walking the beat. Fast forward that, he is now retired police chief and now police commissioner of the Harrisburg city area. So knowing him then, having had the opportunity to work with him for several years, and just watching the love that he shows for the community and just his openness, we thought it not robbery, of course, to have him at a seat at the table. So without any further ado, I'd like to open up in general conversation. Just ask you, Commissioner, if you could just start off talking about what it was like getting into the profession. What led you to these choices that you've made? We were talking a small bit earlier, and we were saying how earlier podcasts we had talked about two Americas. Well, when you were making the decision at a critical time in your life, there was also two Americas. There was also a lot of community unrest and the civil rights movement and era, and so you made a decision, back then, similar to how some young black men in particular are probably making decisions on which way they want to go now. So if you could talk a little bit about what guided you towards this profession, this career pathway, and what's kept you here, quite frankly.
Thanks a lot, Karl, and thanks for having me here on behalf of Mayor Pappenfuss and the citizens of Harrisburg, the officers that I supervise. It's my honor being here. It's my honor serving the citizens of Harrisburg. We have the best people, and I wholeheartedly believe, and I say it with conviction, that we have great people here in the city. Also, I am the police chief too. I have a dual title because in a third-class city, you have to have a chief. So I wear both hats. Anyway, to answer your question, I grew up during the 60s, and as you know, the country was divided. It was terribly divided back then, if you can recall, but you're still young. It was the urban riots of 1967. Back when Martin Luther King, he was in a full swing, him and Malcolm X. I listened to both of the people speak, to talk about the two Americas, how the nation was divided. I witnessed some things basically on TV in Chicago on how we were treated differently from everybody else. I didn't like how the police approached us and how we were beat by blackjacks, nightsticks, dogs sicked on us, just a whole lot. And then, with my father, a military man, he would always talk to me. I would always say to him, "Dad, why is this? Why do they treat us like this?" And he said, "Son, well, it goes deeper." It goes deeper than that. Um, so one day when the insurance man was over, my dad, he said, "Don't you go anywhere. Listen to this conversation here." So my dad told me to sit down. I sat there and I listened to them talk. When the insurance that we used to get back then was way higher than everybody else, and the reason being because the insurance man, who was a white man, said, well, because black men don't live that long. So you had to pay a higher premium for basically nothing. That just opened my eyes up to an awful lot. And I had an interest in law and criminal law. I wanted to know how police agencies were run, why they treated people differently than what they treated everybody else, and my eyes weren't closed. I had the answer, but my thing was, how can I involve myself and how can I fix that? And my dad and my uncles, some days always say to me, well, don't be on the outside looking in, get on the inside so you can look out, so you can understand just what wheels are turning there. And then maybe, one day, you can change things. Um, Martin Luther King made several great speeches, I Have a Dream and different things like that. But one of my favorite speeches was blueprint speech. You got to have a blueprint. You got to be able to plan your life out. You got to have a blueprint. So I listened to that speech over and over and over, and I decided I was going to make that move. I decided I was going to be a police officer, and my ultimate goal was to take the agency over. That was my ultimate goal. Now, I realized I didn't have military. I worked for 7 chiefs, and the rest of them, they had military background. I believe I'm the first police chief in the history of Harrisburg City that doesn't have a military background. But I have a public service background. Right. And I believe, that's how a police agency should be run. That's through a public service means.
So let me ask you this. So making that, thanks for sharing that foundation. I'm sure at whatever age you were when your father and your uncle had these conversations, it's not falling death on my ears that you're talking about 2 males influencing your life from the onset to go into this career pathway. But that other side, when you were making that decision with everything going on in America, the 2 Americas, as we know, which is transcending to current day, you were a young man then. You're still a young man now, but you were a younger man then. What was that like when your friends were making decisions to what, number one, go into the military, or they were making other decisions that may not have been as positive, we'll say, in terms of being productive citizens to society? Talk a little bit about that, like peer pressure, like what was that like while you were making those decisions, not only at the urging of your uncle and your father, but maybe some peers were encouraging you as well. And just the other side, maybe some peers were not encouraging you, especially during the 60s and things where, cops were the pigs and so we'll get to today, but talk about that historical perspective, what you went through, your mindset that you had to have to stay the course and knowing what your goals were and your vision to becoming, involved with the career, police as a career pathway.
Without saying my friends' names, because I still love them dearly. And, one day we were going through the Sunday paper and I saw that the city police was advertising. And, I said, yo, guys, they're advertising for police officers. We're from Harrisburg, we should go down there and put an application in. And so, we talked about it, and we agreed that Monday morning that we were going to all meet at my house and go down there and put in an application. And so the meeting time was 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock rolled around, 1 o'clock rolled around, 3 o'clock rolled around. And I just said, you know what? They're not coming. Yeah. So I'm going to go.
Yeah. How were you around there?
How old was I?
Were you when you made that decision?
I think I was about 27 years old.
Okay. All right.
Because so many, people of color now, it's a hard decision, to put on a uniform, a badge, and a gun and patrol the streets, because of the negative stigma attached to it. And back when I was growing up, in the 60s, you would see, how police would, beat people of color and different things like that. So nobody wanted to be associated with that sort of behavior. And it wasn't anything that parents were really pushing. Even today, nowadays, back when I was growing up, we had hoop dreams, we had football dreams and stuff like that, but everybody can't play football at the next level. Everybody can't play basketball at the next level. So, you have to have a blueprint of what you want to do. I was going to hack at the time, and I was studying law, criminal law, and I was also working at UPS. And I would work from like 7 p to 3 or 5 a.m., and no matter what I did, how hard I worked, I couldn't get into the union. It was always something wrong. It was always something wrong. So, I said, what, I can't take any more of this mess, because I'm going to end up having a bad back. And, I just said, what, I'm going to go this route here. And now, in order for me to get to my current place, I had to do some things that would get me ready to be where I'm at today. So, my first brush with the law, I was a security supervisor at Harrisburg Hospital. That was at that private sector. And private sector is a lot different than like city government and different things like that. So I had that service of giving because of the people that used to come into the hospital to see their loved ones. We were responsible for everybody, so I understood that. Then I ran for office. I was a constable. I ran, people don't know this here about me, but I ran under the Reed team back when he first ran for office, and I won big time. And then I was a deputy sheriff for 5 years. So I was building my resume as I was going.
So you were talking earlier about how it was a decision that you made and some of your friends, quite frankly, didn't make because of the negative stigma of police brutality and the way that the community was responding to the police and not in a favorable way. Well, bringing that forward to today, it's the same. I shouldn't say it's the same because I don't know what it was like, honestly, living back then. But can you tell me about the parallel and how today's youth, who we want to encourage, quite frankly, to get involved, to patrol our own neighborhoods, to be able to get onto, in particular, the Harrisburg Police Force, understanding their struggles with making those types of decisions, especially today when there's issues, police involved shootings, political unrest, the DC riots, the attempted coup and the thugs down there, and how they were treating the police, and it was different when it was Black Lives Matter versus, the thugs, that tried to storm the Capitol, that did storm the Capitol, quite frankly. How do we encourage our young Black boys and young ladies to want to get involved today when we overcame, quote unquote, the things of the past, like during the civil rights era? What kind of challenge is that for you to go and present that in inner city Harrisburg in particular?
If I can say this here, just finish up. Me putting this uniform on, I lost a whole lot of friends. People didn't want anything to do with me unless they needed me. But as time wore on and they saw the type of person that I was and, how I was, trying to help them and not trying to hurt them, because discretion is the biggest thing that a police officer has, and I used to always, use that card, because everybody shouldn't be locked up. Everybody can't go to jail. Prison can't hold everybody, and we know that the criminal justice system is a money-making entity, To get back to your question, the more things change, the more they stay the same. What the young men are faced with now with poverty, with, the challenges of even walking outside, the educational system, everything falls into play. You have to understand, that everything is intertwined together. It's just a hard pill to swallow to be a police officer right now, especially the Breonna Taylor shooting, especially the George Floyd um, tragedy, and just with everything else, to see how Black Lives Matter when they marched on Washington D.C., you had everybody out there in like riot gear on the Capitol steps, and then when Proud Boys and the other groups did it, they were able to breach the Capitol security and different things like that. Yeah, so the more things change, this is like 50 years later, and we're still going, to the same thing. 50 years later, after President Lyndon B. Johnson, he promised to conduct us a study to make things better. You see, this is what we have to be careful at. A lot of people promise us things, and the first thing they do is they throw together a study. Right. And they say, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong. And on Lyndon B. Johnson's study, I think it's called the Kearns Report or something like that. It names police as part of the problem. But to be honest with you, police is only the face of the criminal justice system. We don't make laws or anything like that, but we are the first thing that you associate with the criminal justice system because, we're there and, we do what we do, But, we have to be careful, even under President Obama, with the Ferguson incident. They came out with that study, Eric Holder, great guys, and different things like that. They came out with a report outlining everything that is wrong with the criminal justice system. But it's a report, and we really have no means of enforcement.
Okay.
Of what they find, and that's the biggest problem is the country.
Yeah. So
enforcement and following through.
Yeah, and I agree with that. One of the things that came out, and we did, when I was heading up my Brother's Keeper initiative for the city, we talked about 21st century policing and things like that. And you have a great relationship with former commissioner in Philadelphia, Ramsey.
That's my
yeah. So we understand the national implication that actually Harrisburg has as the capital city of Pennsylvania, and your relationships that you have. And, so nationally you're looked at, Harrisburg is viewed as a place to study or a place to get best practices from or to build upon best practices. How do you, as a best practice and a leader of the current, police here, the mayor, and then of course you, how do we get our local citizens involved? And what I'm trying to lead is we had a conversation some years ago in terms of the civil service exam, and to what you mentioned earlier, you were saying you are a very minute percentage of law enforcement that does not have military background. And one of the things that is a pushback oftentimes in communities, in particular predominantly Black communities, is that we are over policed and over militarized. So could you talk about the civil service exam and some things that have been best practices or things that you've considered doing to help diversify the police force, or some things that might be on the horizon in the future?
Sure. When it comes to police testing, veterans get veteran preference points. And back when I took the test, they were getting 15 veteran preference points. And I said to myself, this is wrong because severely handicapped veterans should be getting 15 veteran preference points who cannot be officers. But for some reason in Harrisburg City, they were getting 15 veteran preference points, and they were not willing to give Harrisburg residents that took the test 5 preference points. So what I did is I called the Veterans Association administration, and I asked them about that. And so I was able to drop the veterans preference points from 15 down to 10 to where they should have been at, And
what's the importance of that? Can you talk about the importance of that? What did that do? Or what's the significance of having those veteran points versus not having those veteran points?
Well, we are civil service, and we go by the rule of 3. So if you're a military veteran, and if you get 10 veteran preference points, say that you scored 80 or 90 on the test, and then those 10 points are added on, and so now you're above everybody else. And the rule of three, we have to take the military veterans first. You know, um, so that put a damper on things. Because we don't have a lot of people of color in the military, and I'm not knocking anybody for choosing to go that route, because it's very smart to like do that. But it knocks people of color further down, and sometimes I'm not able to get to them. So what I asked our Civil Service Commission to do is to in the FOP, they're agreeing with it. We have some more things to iron out.
What's the FOP for people that aren't familiar? Fraternal
Order of Police. They have a president. That's our union. That's the police union. Right. And they are very reasonable guys. They listen to reason into conversation, and they're willing to look at giving city residents who take the police test 5 preference points for being city residents. And that's huge, because that puts them in the ballpark with everybody else.
Right. Agreed. And that's so you get a lot of blame. We'll transition into the amount of blame that you get. But the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is to, number one, allow people to know that there's things that you are definitely in control of, and there's things that you're not in control of. So when the question comes up, well, why aren't you hiring more Black people or more people from the city? You have to be able to clearly articulate that it is the civil service test that not saying ties your hands, but in essence gives you the order in which you should hire or have to hire, quite frankly.
Yes.
So it's not you saying, here's a nice young man or young lady graduating from Harrisburg High who has an interest in a career pathway in law enforcement, and so why don't we interview him or her or them, put them in the academy, so forth and so on. So I think it is imperative that you get your message out, not to avoid criticism, and in terms of diversity on the police force. If it's criticism that's worthy, then okay, let's have at it. But if it's not, we need to explain that you are not the only decision maker in terms of hiring, in the police force.
Well, to be honest with you, Karl, I feel I have accomplished a whole lot. There's a couple of other things I want to do before I make my exit. But one of the biggest failures that I feel every day when I go downtown, when I look around, is that I have failed to bring on people of color. And that's a hurt piece, because no matter how hard I try, it's like hitting your head up against a brick wall, because a lot of people, they're just not sold on it, and we have a lot of intelligent people of color out there. I mean, we have a lot of gifted people out there, just by some of the conversations, that I have with them, I've been saying, what, I wish that you would take the test, but, they don't want to. And it's not that they can't pass the test, but it's what the media has showed, what the monsters that the media has painted the police to be. I mean, and let's face it, some of it's like rightfully so,
right?
But, you can't hold my agency accountable for something that happened 1,000 miles off or something like that. You can't, Breonna Taylor, that was just a tragedy right there, but it wasn't with my agency though. So a lot of times, you can't brush us all with the same brush, and because of incidents like that, situations like that, it's just hard. And that's one of my biggest failures, and I look at it every day, and I'm just, it just eats me up. And I, as Johnny Bay is the police chief down Lancaster now. Mike Muldrow, he's in York, and oh God. My other friend, he's the Karl police chief, and we talk about it all the time. That's our biggest failure, is to bring people of color, to get them interested in occupations like this.
Yeah, and
Terrell Landis and Karl. Okay. Sorry about that, Terrell.
You said Darrell or Terrell?
Terrell
Landis. Shout out to Chief Terrell Landis, Karl. But yeah, so when we talk about the police force being painted with a broad stroke, that is also a lot of times, as you're well aware of, the Black community's issue as well. We don't want to be painted with a broad stroke, and so when we have officers that are patrolling our neighborhoods, that all they know is, what's going on in Chicago, New York, DC, York, Lancaster, wherever. Those of us here in Harrisburg, as young Black men and young Black women, we don't want to be painted with those negative stereotypes either. And oftentimes, just like the police don't want to be associated with those bad apples, and they don't want to be overgeneralized because of a few. The same is applicable to the Black community. And I don't think, as we've talked about before on various panels and stuff, sometimes it's not reciprocated. And that's not only with police, that's with teachers, and we can go down the list. But to make sure that you see yourself in that person that you're serving is key. How do you get through to your officers, sergeants, lieutenants, everyone under you, under your umbrella and your leadership? How do you get them to begin to buy into developing relationships with the community, like you have? And so I'm saying like you have, because I've known you since I was a boy, and we might not always agree with what you do in terms of out there, but I don't think anybody is going to really come with validity to say that you're disingenuous and you can't stand the community, you're not empathetic or have compassion. Now, you might not do, like you said before, you might not do everything they want and be in agreement with them. But at the same time, I don't think people were painting you like the officers who kicked in Breonna Taylor's door, not you personally. So how do you try to instill in those officers that are under you that same level of empathy and compassion? What are some of the things that you do? Some of the things that you try to emulate or model for them to serve the community?
As you know, leadership starts at the top, and your police agency takes on the face of the leader at the time. My thing is that I like to show compassion, empathy, to everybody out there. Especially, if you walk through some of these here neighborhoods, it's just sad. It's just sad to see the blight and everything else, it's just sad to talk to some of these people and they ask you questions, why don't people love us? Why aren't we treated the same as everybody else? Why don't we have the same opportunities as everybody else? It's just a hurt piece. And that stuff touches me, so, I explain that to my officers. You cannot judge this person right here because of the neighborhood that they live in. You got to look at the hand that they were dealt. And that's the biggest thing right there. You got to look at the hand that they were dealt, because there's a lot of good people that live in like bad neighborhoods that, want a way out, but they need help, and we don't have the same opportunities as they may have across the river here. But however, what we can show them, what we can give them is compassion and understanding. Everybody that you come in contact with, you don't got to charge up. You don't got to do that stuff to them, you can talk to them. You can talk to their parents, different things like that. I can't be out there 24/7 when my people are like working, but when I'm there, I know that they listen to me. And like sometimes when I'm not there, I know that they don't listen to me, because nobody's perfect and I don't have control over people like that. Yeah. People, they're A1 personalities, and I know, that, things go on that I don't approve of,
Gotcha.
But it happens.
So do you want to talk a little bit about having that relationship with the schools? And we're talking about school to prison pipeline. You had a hand in helping to dismantle that for a while when you were, participating with the Harrisburg High Athletic Program and things back in the 90s, mid 90s. Could you talk a little bit about those experiences? So when we say whether it's the SRO program or, school resource officers or whatever, it's not at the time that I understood it to be. It was more so as a career pathway, not necessarily a go and patrol the hallways and arrest kids for, skipping and things like that. It was more of an opportunity to get kids involved with interacting with law enforcement on the front end, not the back end, so that they could see law enforcement as a career pathway, quite frankly. And you can talk about the basketball team and things like that where you interacted, and to this day being at the football games and things.
I was fortunate enough, to be selected to the SRO program, and I was up at John Harris campus. I had an opportunity to meet Danny Lanzana, Brian Smoot, Michael Simpson, who was my neighbor down on 3rd Street at the time, Julia Sweets, just the majors and everybody else, just some outstanding kids, and they were just outstanding young men and outstanding young women. I was fortunate enough to be invited to be on the sidelines, in a coaching mode under Coach Mosley, just to be in a resource there, for the kids. I was fortunate enough, to be on the basketball sidelines, being a resource, and that's when Harrisburg High School won their last state championship. Is when I was there with them.
So it was all you?
No, it was all the kids, but I was, but I was part of it, and we just totally, you look at that class in that year. Those a couple years I was up there, they just totally, just crushed the high school to prison pipeline, because those kids, they had dreams, they had ideals, and they're all doing great right now. Having conversations with Fran Chardo, President Judge John Cherry, I'm on this board with them. We want to dismantle that, because prison isn't for everybody. In prison, you just can't lock up. You can't lock your way out of problems. Education is the key. Education. I had the opportunity to be with Mrs. Kimber, my high school classmate. She was the principal.
Oh, yes.
And her and I had a great thing going on. She had the understanding. I said, listen, if a child gets in trouble, if they violate any school policy here, well, then you deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything.
And that's going back to leadership again.
Yeah. I'm not going to do anything to
diversionary programs that, that could stifle and basically eradicate the school to prison pipeline is not oftentimes utilized in lieu of the disciplinary action. A school event or incident does not necessarily necessitate a criminal event. And I think that was key. What we're going to do now is open up the phone lines for calls. Our phone number here is 717-903-8760. 903-8760. We're going to go to a commercial right now, take a little break. On the other side, we'll look forward to having your phone calls and continuing this conversation with Commissioner Chief Carter.
Hello, this is Juanita Edrington Grant coming to you from the Harrisburg Uptown Building, 1821 Fulton Street, the former Hamilton Health Center building. We are classified as the hub in Harrisburg, PA. You will now see a brief video of what we have named the Castile Edrington Community Room. It's on the 2nd floor, 5th Street entrance of our building at 1821 Fulton Street. We're providing this video to you so that you can get a brief glimpse of our newest addition to our building, which is a room that we are allowing to be used for several different occasions, be it educational seminars, conferences, family dinners. We do have a capacity of holding at least 100 people, which is 10 tables, 100 chairs, or a professional corporate setup. And we're looking to place this information on the Hub website within the next couple of weeks so that you can see more of the advertisement, a price list, and the different information that you may want to know about renting this space. This space was designed by TLC Work-Based Training and TLC Renovation and Construction. Owner and CEO is Tori Castile. Yes, another one of the great projects created by Tori Castile. If you want to get in touch with us, please feel free to call me at 717-889-6377. Look forward to speaking to you from the Hub.
Okay, welcome back. We have our first caller. Caller, what is your name? Please tell us your name and where you're calling from, please.
Nelson Brewster calling from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for calling in.
I appreciate it. Commissioner, how you doing today?
Pretty good, Mr.
Singleton.
Nelson.
Good evening. I had a quick question here. I was wondering, you've been a long time mentor in the community. I'm interested in knowing how you balance being a mentor in the community of Harrisburg and also doing your job as a police officer with the stigma that is placed on police in light of the media today.
That's a good question, but I believe, that we need all the help that we can get. We need all the role models that we can get. We have a lot of talented young people out there that are looking for direction. A lot of, homes don't have a father in them. And if I can be a resource for somebody, to get them to the next level, that's what I do. And I'm not, worried about any stigma or anything like that, because what I want to do is that when I retire, I want to leave Harrisburg a better place than I found it. And the only way that I can do that there is by reaching out to somebody behind me and bringing them up.
So do you find that hard? Are there the teenagers that still engage you, or are they all standoffish with you? Or can you talk a little bit about that? What type of balance is that when you want to go in where those young people are, like with Duke Burnett over at the Allensville Community Center, he's having those open gyms? Are they standoffish with you? Are they engaging? Do they have probing questions that, what is that like?
Teenagers are, that's a difficult age right there, and a lot of times, like they're very open to me because they have questions and they want to know things. They want to know what's going to happen to them if they do A, B, and C. But basically, it depends on who's with them, who their audience is. If they, don't feel pressured by the audience, that they're with, then they're very forthcoming and they're very honest and open, but if it's the wrong crowd, then they sort of, throw back their shoulders and they take that defensive posture. I understand it because we all went through that, and I need them, because I don't need them going to jail or anything like that. I don't need them being shot on the street corners, or I don't need them getting into the drug trade. And so anything that I have to do, if I talk to 5 and I reach 1, then, that's a victory.
So how, as I can only say as an educator or somebody that's in the political eye, if my profession was constantly approached from the position of I don't want to be, or it's this negative connotation about it from young people in particular, that would wear on me some. I mean, we're all human, talk a little bit about that. Like, you're trying to encourage the young people. What is it that you want the young people to know about you being a black man first, long before, a police officer, and now in this role to the caller's question, having that delicate balance of your humanity and your profession, and then knowing what it's like to be a young black male growing into a black man? How do you balance that?
Well, first of all, I want them to know, that I walked in similar shoes, not in the same shoes, but similar shoes. I had the same disconnect, with society because what was going on around me at the time. I want them to know, that just because, you come from the projects doesn't mean that you can't make it. Just because, you come from a one-parent home, doesn't mean that you can't make it. The biggest thing that I want them to see from me, is to always have a positive outlook. A positive outlook changes things, and to have a plan for your life. I came from the projects. I'm proud of it.
Hall Manor, me.
I didn't come from Hall Manor.
I know. I mean, Hall Manor and me. I'm shouting mine out before you say yours. So here's a question from Miss Charlotte Plains that we all know very well. Do you have cultural competent trainings for your force on an annual basis? Perhaps the model used by Camden, New Jersey, where officers didn't fire one shot last year, and that's making the news, nationally, especially where Camden has grown from. So I'm a product of Newark, New Jersey. So Newark, Camden, you know, so forth and so on. And so what we're talking about again is best practices. Are there things that you have that you're implementing here locally so that we can continue to have a decrease in crime, less violent city? And I know those are all things that are trending down. And it may not seem like that to those that have lost loved ones, but statistically, I guess what we're getting at is talking about how best practices can be implemented, such as, but not limited to, those that were used in Camden, to maybe be brought here, not maybe, but to be brought here in Harrisburg, so that we aren't only, you know, staying at this level, but we're steadily improving in various facets of our policing.
Yes, I was doing some reading about Camden and how they did away with their whole police force, and then they brought it back. You know, they hired some new leaders in there, and they made it better. We have cultural competency courses. You know, I'm looking at bringing in different people, but we didn't fire not one shot at anybody last year either. Mm-hmm. You know, matter of fact, in 2019 was the lowest crime rate, I believe, in the history of our city. And then when 2020 hit, the with the COVID, the pandemic, people getting laid off, you know, the housing situation, the job situation, the schools closing down, you know, people had more time on their hands to get in trouble. But overall, I don't think it was too bad of a year. My heart goes out to those people, you know, who lost loved ones, because that did happen here. You know, but you look at Chicago, they had over 600 homicides. You look at Philadelphia, they had 500 homicides. You know, we had 22 homicides. Yeah. And, you know, that's to me, one is too many homicides, you know. Yeah. I have implemented this year program, you know, where we had taken almost 2,000 handguns off the street without pulling the trigger on anybody. And some of the ages of the kids, they're like 10, 11, 12 years old, and they're carrying guns and stuff like that, you know. But, you know, we haven't shot anybody yet, and I pray that we don't have to shoot anybody. And
and just like I said earlier, one of the things, we're not going to be Chicago, we're not going to be LA, we're not going to be that. That's not our goal. You know, just like I don't want the police here to be compared to those police there. You know, the murders out there and things. To your point, one is too many here. So staying locally, and you know, one of the pieces that you just, even naturally, innately, that you did, even when you used Chicago and those other places, innately you came back with empathy and compassion. Like, well, even one here is too much, so your heart goes out to those that lost loved ones. Just those little things like that, you know, not necessarily, it wasn't always present in the police chief here, you know, in particular here in Harrisburg. And, you know, so I highlight that. And it's those things where one of the things that I want to make sure that we do on this show is have balance. And so if it's time, you know how we go, you know, if it's time to have people out there showing up and protesting about, you know, the police, we're going to do that too. I'm going to support that too, you know, doing it the right way. If it's time to highlight the police, you know, in positive light, we're going to do that too. Engaging DA Chardo, you know, engaging Chief Ryder out at Swadera, who's the president of the Police Chiefs Association for Dauphin County. He's going to be at the table as well. So these are things that, you know, we bring to the table to have desirable outcomes, solutions-based, that's going to benefit the masses, not necessarily just the chosen few. So I'm thankful, you know, that we have you in this position. I guess shout out to retiring Mr. Was it Captain now?
It's Deputy Chief.
Deputy Chief Derek Moody, who's coming up on over almost 30 years of service to the Harrisburg Police. So definitely had an excellent relationship working with him in the team, you know, when I was down at the city. So yeah. We have another question come in, Ms. Rashida Epps. What programs are available for city residents to have positive interactions with the police? So I guess this is one of those opportunities where you can talk about your community policing services and activities and things. So what are some of the things you'd like to highlight with regards to proactive, positive interactions between the community and the police force?
One of the things I did, I went to the mayor's office, and I was looking for a person like Blake Lynch. I came across Blake Lynch because I believe, you know, there has to be a special segment of your police force, you know, who is a community-based service. You know, you got to look at how the state has basically done away with the mental health program. So we have a lot of mental health people here, you know. So, you know, I went to the commissioners and I went to DA Chardo. We all sat down and I said, listen, I need mental health workers in the city of Harrisburg. I need full-time people. And they promised me that they would get me full-time people. And that has happened now. You know, we're going to have 3. As far as the services in the program, you know, the community policing unit, they do like the crime watch, they do like the cookouts, you know, they engage, they feed people. We've been feeding people for almost a whole year now because of the COVID and situations like that. You know, we give out coats and stuff like that. I have reached in my own pocket, and sometimes my wife doesn't, you know, she says, why, you know, and I've given to people, you know, to pay their rent, you know, to save their homes and stuff like that, you know, so like, you know, there are, you know, a lot of things, you know, that, you know, we're trying to bring, you know, full circle so that when you come downtown to the police station, not all you see is the police, you know, you can see, you know, civilians walking around, you know, with resources to help,
So, and that takes me back to who I'm looking forward to have on the show, Commissioner George Hartwick, who's, you know, basically the purse strings for the county under that mental health side of things. So that'll be a great opportunity to double back on this conversation in terms of how that's an intricate part of ensuring safety in our communities and proper community policing relationships. So I will say I've talked with DA Chardo. We have a bi-monthly call with some community members, chiefs, the police, as well as the DA, to talk about how, through the Pennsylvania Diversity Coalition, how we can help them diversify not only in their physical appearance, but in terms of their thinking, in terms of best practices, so forth and so on. So those are ongoing calls, and DA Chardo has been open, you know, to that. We've had clergy on the line as well to talk about when first responders are called, and if there's a mental health crisis, how individuals in those communities should be engaged as a buffer before the law enforcement actually kicks their piece into action if necessary. And one of the things I highlight is that these aren't just volunteer positions, that they should be paid. Those community members that are embedded in those communities should be paid. And so those are things that DA Chardo has agreed to look at as well, and find resources. And I'm assuming that is going to be in conjunction with, you know, Judge Cherry and others, especially Commissioner Hartwick, to be a definite problem solver, solutions-based problem solver for the needs definitely in Harrisburg City, but throughout the county as a whole. So that's great to hear. Ms. Darcy Mayhew has a question. With veteran preference, does the city have a targeted recruitment effort to seek out veterans who are people of color and actively try to recruit them? So what about seeking out veterans that are, you know, persons of color?
We have a recruitment program that we do every year. We go to different places. You know, we try to target people of color. As I said earlier, you know, that's one of my biggest failures because I'm not able to bring on enough people that I want to bring on. I would like to have more balance on my force, and that hasn't happened yet. And I'm willing to take advice or any help from anybody, you know, that can help me with that, because that's a national problem. It's not just germane to Harrisburg here. It's a national problem. So I'm willing, you know, to seek all the help and all the information I can possibly get.
And along with when we do get those recruits out of that class, talk about, because I've noticed it in the teaching profession as well. When we get people of color, and particularly Black professionals in policing and or in the education field, in the Harrisburg School District or on the Harrisburg Police Force, a lot of times they gain that experience because there's nothing like Harrisburg experience for your profession, and then they leave.
Basically, what we're faced with, you know, sometimes we do get people of color and they're very good. And then the surrounding agencies, after we get them all trained up, then the surrounding agencies come in here and they offer them more money
because of experience.
Because of the experience,
the type of experience.
Because if you can work in Harrisburg, you can work anywhere.
If you can succeed in Harrisburg, you can succeed anywhere.
Yes,
and that is along with the education, the field of education as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, we need to pause on that one for a second because that's yeah, definitely. Again, 903-8760 is the number to call in. 717-903-8760. We're here with Commissioner Chief Thomas Carter of the Harrisburg City Police. Mr. Stanley Washington, good brother. His question is, how do you sift through and weed out the bad apples on your force?
That's also a very good question. We go through a hiring process, and during the hiring process, they're given polygraphs. We do extensive background. We do extensive interview process and, everything like that, but sometimes people are good enough to slip through the cracks. They have to go through a whole year of FTO training. So
what's FTO training?
Field training officer, they have somebody over top of them, showing them the ropes, and a lot of times, we're able to catch problems, that we don't like, and so we're able to weed officers out, but sometimes some do slip through the crack.
And that's what. So let's speak to that a bit. And I'm running the parallel as an educator because I know this power of unions. And just like, with the police officer that was, that killed the baby, Tamir Rice, he was able to go and find another job. His records were basically suppressed in a way where you couldn't talk bad about him or just talk about what went on. And so there's aspects of the union for the police as well as teachers that sometimes protects bad apples. And that makes everybody look bad on both sides. And I know you can't go in deep with that. So I'm going to say this part, from education to whatever the profession is, those union reps, those individuals that, and I'm pro-union when the union's doing right. We need to make sure that we are not putting a white eye on our entire population of professionals when there is, bad actors embedded in there that was able to slip through the cracks. So we need to call them out. They do not deserve the same benefits that those of us who are out here doing the right thing get. So,
even after the George Floyd incident, there was a reckoning among the legislators. I was over in some meetings at the state capitol. Del Santos, Senator Del Santos, and some other people, they were over there, myself and my deputy chief, and they had drafted legislation, whereas if an officer is a bad apple and if they get in trouble, well, then that jacket follows them now. It is no more hiding behind anything now. Everything is in the open. When you apply to different agencies, we have to disclose everything now.
Okay, and I know that wasn't the case before, so that is definitely
that's the case now.
That is the best practice now. Great.
Yes.
Miss Krista Page has a question. Are your officers going to be receiving mental health training? I mean, you guys see it, and ladies see a lot of things as well. So the mental health training in terms of for yourself and mental health training with regards to knowing when you're in the community that something may not be a crime. It may be a mental health crisis.
I am happy to say that just about my whole agency has already received the mental health training. Mm-hmm. And it's been very helpful, very, very useful. We know when to stand down. We know to let the mental health experts take over. When things get out of hand, that's when they signal to us, hey, we've done everything that we can do.
Right.
And now it's a police matter. I'm happy to say that doing some of our involvement with mental health people, we're able to save lives. One guy was going to kill himself, shoot himself. We were able to talk him down. Another person was going to jump, and we were able to stop that person from jumping. So it's been very, very helpful. It's been very, very useful, and I'm very, very proud of the program.
Okay, and the program is something that's ongoing, not a one-shot deal.
It's ongoing. It'll be ongoing I got D.A. Chartle's word. I got Mr. Hartwick's word. I got the mayor's word. This is an ongoing situation.
Okay. So that's definitely good. So what is being done in Harrisburg to ensure the history you speak of doesn't repeat itself, especially in light of the January 6th incident and the subsequent protests? So historically, the things that you know from the 60s and things, and we talk about how sometimes history, most times history repeats itself. What are some of the things that you are leading, charges you're leading to ensure that history in the negative light doesn't repeat itself?
You know, looking back at that, you know, it's just we all saw the same picture, but with my training, I saw different things. I saw them organized. I saw the militaristic side of things. It was very scary. It could have been a lot worse than it was, except for the actions of some brave police officers down there, some brave Capitol Guards, you know, who acted, you know, bravely down there. You know, like right now, the perpetrators, they have gone underground. It's a more dangerous time in our country than what we think it is. You know, I know that, you know, the presidency has changed hands, you know, but that really means nothing, you know, because we understand, you know, that the insurrection reached high levels, and never before in the history did it come out like that. You know, did the media bring it out like that?
Right.
You know, so
but they couldn't hide it. I mean,
right,
everybody,
right.
You know, the people that's running into the Capitol is live in, you know, in streaming.
I mean, but,
so
the boldness of the situation, you know,
that's white privilege. I mean,
to try to overthrow, you know, the U.S. Constitution, you know, just that mind thought, you know. But we are training with the National Guard.
Okay.
You know, we worked with them for like 3 days straight, you know, so we got to know, you know, what they do, and they got to know what we do, you know. But I can honestly say this, you know, that if another insurrection would arise like that, the DOD would just send drones up there and just bomb the living crap out of them.
Okay. Well, I mean, because that would be history repeating itself.
Yes, because the DOD knows where everybody's campus. They know where everybody trains at. So, you know, I don't think that they're going to let anything else like that happen a second time.
And that's, you know, and I think one of the takeaways, you always find some good in even the most, you know, the despicable acts almost. So one of the things that I will highlight is how now a lot of these entities, military and police forces, are looking into the Facebook and tracking the social media. Is that something we're doing here in Harrisburg? Is that something that we're doing, you know, in Harrisburg, to, in the event that we might have a couple?
Well, yes, my federal partners, they're doing that. But as I was saying, you know, this is a scary time because they went underground. They went really underground, and some of those groups are using the same social media platform as ISIS uses. So you know, there's a lot going on, and they have money, they have big backing and different things like that. You know? So
I've always said I've never seen, and think about this, I've never seen a dirty KKK uniform. So they're getting them clean somewhere.
And that's true, but you know, even the terminology KKK anymore, you know, that was back in my day. You know, they don't use that terminology.
I won't say some of the terms they're using. I'll just say they exchange robes from time to time and outfits and so
you know, but it's very dangerous times right now, you know, because, you know, what you don't see, you don't know.
And you know what? And as I always say, as a black man in America who knows I'm a black man in America, our ancestors did not live through the Middle Passage, did not, you know, build this country just to every time those racist white people decide that there's too much black love and black empowerment, to have, white backlash. We don't go away. And that's, I always say that's not all white people or, anything, but we have to maintain our rightful place of being unapologetically Black and proud, and we are in every profession and leaders in every profession. So,
in a Martin Luther King speech, the Blueprint speech, he talks about that. You got to be proud that you have nappy hair. You got to be proud of your Blackness, the way that you look, the way that you dress, the way that you walk and talk. You got to be proud of that stuff. Right. You shouldn't try to find makeup to make your face lighter or anything like that. Stand up, be a Black man, speak up, be a Black woman, and just be proud. Like, right now, we're in a good time in this country, but, if we don't do something soon, if we don't come together as a whole, as a people, then we're going to miss an excellent opportunity that was given to us. I'm talking about, like with the vice president and the president, different things like that. Right now, I love the movement that is going on in this country. I don't mind people protesting and marching and like speaking out, because back when I was growing up, there's only so much that you can say before they put the stick to you. So, I think it's a good time, but, have a blueprint, have a platform, know what you're doing, empower each other.
Shameless plug, a seat at the table here at Music Man Studios, hosted by Karl Singleton. Platform. So let me
just have direction and come together as people, as one. Get behind a good candidate and support that candidate. You understand that? Let's not pull each other down. Let's not do what we see other races doing, and so we try to be that way too. Because we are a loving race, a loving people. Let's bring that back to full circle.
Yeah, agree. And I'll go back to who I'm learning a lot from 6 to 10, every morning, Joe Madison, the Black Eagle, when he talks about Black Lives Matter and how, that is a specific point of focus that Black people and allies have undertaken. It's not to say other lives don't matter, but since Black bodies and Black lives have been riddled, expendable historically, we needed a real position of focus and a statement of focus and purpose. Hence birthed the Black Lives Matter saying and movement. And he always says there's a difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice. And I believe Black Lives Matter is showing, putting forth effort of sacrifice. And so we stand by that, and we continue to yell and back up the fact that Black Lives Matter. Can we talk about Ms. Charlotte Plains again? Can we talk about community police? Wait a second. There was another question that was up that I missed. James Bear, he had a question about the percentage of Harrisburg City police officers that reside in the city. Do you have those statistics of your police force? And if not, could you get them to us?
I can get them to you, but I can tell you right now it's a very low number, because under the Act 47, that was one of the things that they bargained away with the union, that we no longer had to live in the city. So like right now, we can't force anybody to live in the city. Officers are free to live wherever that they want to live. We do have a handful or so that live in the city, but not that many.
Right. Okay. So can we talk about the community policing workers? Are they following an evidence-based model such as ceasefire, group violence prevention? And if not, why not? That's coming from Ms. Plains again.
Hey, Charlotte, how you doing, dear? Love you, dear. Right now, she's talking about the Boston Project, ceasefire. Right now, we didn't get off the ground running with the new CSAs, the community service officers. Right. As far as the community policing officers, yes, we're following best known practices right now. But police work is forever changing, and ideals are forever changing, and what have you. But the Boston Project, seems to be a very good project.
Okay. So again, phone number here is 717-903-8760. You're going to prepare to take another commercial break. And when we come back, we will have Miss Krista Page, and her question we will address at that time. Before I go to commercial, I'd just like to say, wish a very happy anniversary to Miss Wilma Finley and Mr. Gus Finley, 57 years. God rest his soul, Mr. Gus. Thanks again. We're here live with Chief Thomas Carter of the Harrisburg Police Commissioner, Chief Thomas Carter, Harrisburg Police Force. Here live in studio, Music Man Studios, here at the gracious home of Craig and Conrad, the Lewis brothers, co-run, we'll say, by my man Chad Scott of the District Bar and Lounge. Can't thank them enough for the hard work that they're doing to produce this show, to keep us on point here. So much love. Miss Krista Page, have you noticed an influx in transient or unfamiliar homeless individuals to the area? Are you working with Capital Area Coalition on homelessness? Catch.
Yes, we are. We've noticed a major influx of homeless people, and through conversation with these people, they say that they come to Harrisburg because the Harrisburg police don't harass them. They always try to help them. I know downtown, the Presbyterian Church, we have regular meetings down there. We're always, trying to find them shelter, medical help, and everything else. So yes, and as the weather gets colder, it gets worse. We try to get as many homeless people off the streets as possible. It is a big problem. It's a big problem in every city, but we have our homeless problem. We have a homeless camp down on Front Street, that we deal with regularly, and we try to help them out as best as possible. But sometimes they don't want help. It's only so much that we can do. But those that want help, we do find shelter for.
Yeah, there's that brings me back. One of the things that when Miss Charlotte Plains was co-hosting last week, we talked a lot, I believe, about how we have a large amount of halfway houses, disproportionately compared to other throughout the state. And could you talk about, is there a lot of interaction with individuals that are here but not necessarily from here, that are in halfway houses? Are you seeing the influx in any way? I know there was a moratorium on rooming houses and things some years ago with the city, but is there any disproportionality that you'd like to talk about, or if you can, with regards to calls to the halfway houses? Are you all called there, or is that the state? Does the state police go there since there's some of them are state-run halfway houses? How does that work in terms of resources?
It's a combination of both. Halfway houses are usually like state property, but sometimes we are called there. Mm-hmm. I know that there's more halfway houses in the city that I want. Mm-hmm. There's nothing against a person who's getting out of jail trying to get their lives right, but it seems like they overload cities with halfway houses. Yeah, and that just creates problems for us.
Let me just be clear. I believe we should have halfway houses because we want our citizens to return and through proper means of reentry. So, but I guess what we've noticed, a lot of us that have done research on this work in this area, is that a lot of times the individuals in these halfway houses that keep popping up are coming from elsewhere. Right. And so we're not saying no, we don't want ours, but they're saying elsewhere, saying they don't want their reentering citizens, and so they send them to Harrisburg.
They send them here, right? Yeah. And that's the problem that I have.
And that's what I'm talking about. Right.
if it's a homegrown situation, yes, I'm willing to do anything to help my own.
Right.
You know, but a lot of times it's not like that. You know,
Right.
they're from every place else but
Right.
Harrisburg.
Right.
You know, and it presents and it brings different situations and different problems, you know,
Right.
to Harrisburg.
Right.
So, you know, that's the only, you know, problem that I have with the halfway house.
And that's the right, exactly. So Ms. Kimber is asking, is there bias training in place for the officers that are patrolling the city? So when you talk about cultural competence, are we to give more specificity? Is there bias training that is ongoing, I would add, that's given to the officers, the patrolmen, and women?
We do get bias competence training and what have you, know, but anytime you have a police agency, you're talking about training, you're talking about dollars, and you're talking about manpower. You're talking about, you know, how to plan to get everybody trained up, you know. So we may, you know, get like bias competency training like once a year, if even that, you know. It's not an ongoing cycle like I would like it to be, you know, because of the monies involved and the scheduling to get people there and what have you.
Okay, and sometimes the training is in, you know, in the morning when you know, or before you go out. Maybe there's something that said in as a platoon or in, you know, whatever. Maybe you had that training in March and you're revisiting it based on, you know, that before your shift starts, and that's training. That's ongoing training. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in classroom, sit down, off the street training. It could be in preparation and, you know, infused into the daily.
And we do that,
right?
You know, but you know, however, you know, like not every supervisor is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Not every supervisor has the ability, you know, to make a point, you know, other than, you know, what he's trained to do. You know, so I like dealing with a professional who was trained in that area, you know, that can draw out different facts. You know, I like facts.
Right.
You know, give me facts. You know, and I like that stuff. You know, so you know, I like the classroom setting for that sort of training.
So, and I'm just saying because of dollars. The fact would be that some of the trainers, some of the people that's training probably need that reminder just as much as they're giving it to those that they're going to send out to the streets. You know, so he or she that's in front of the battalion, it was the platoon. What was it?
A platoon.
Platoon, right? I don't know. Battalion, is that fire? Battalion,
yeah,
I don't know. Okay, all right. I ain't gonna mix up that. That's a whole nother ball game. But yeah, just that ongoing urging, so that he or she is enhanced as a leader, you know, overall. So Mr. Chuck Jackson has a question. Even though he has a New York Giants sign, I'm still going to ask this question. Whatever happened to the noise ordinance and the curfew for the youth? That's loaded. He's dating himself.
We do have the ordinance, the noise ordinance. I've been talking to City Council President Wanda Williams, and she's revisiting the ordinance, you know, to bring it up to like modern day standard.
And I think once again, we're at enforcement again. You mentioned earlier having something on the books or having something in place, but then the enforcement piece, you know, and having the man and woman power to enforce it. I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just thinking.
When it comes to the noise ordinance, you know, sometimes we're dealing with a younger generation, you know, in the way that they play their music or the way, you know, that they have their house parties because of the COVID right now. You know, they don't understand, you know, that nobody else wants to hear that junk at 2 and 3 in the morning. You know, so you know, it's just a difficult time right now. But yes, you know, we do have it. Usually when we write citations and they go to the district justice offices, the DJs, they just kick them out and stuff like that, you know, because sometimes the fines can be really hefty, you know, but the lesson is, you know, well, if you do it again, then you're going to be charged.
A greater, okay.
Yeah, so.
So Ralph Rodriguez is here. The current administration spoke about dropping the usual officer consortium testing for our own city testing. By simplifying an entrance test, could that play a role in potentially lowering the quality of officers we attract? So I guess I guess what he's trying to ask is, if you move any way away from the current standards, are you concerned about having a lesser quality professional on the force?
No, well, we're not moving away from the current standards because all standards are set by MOPEC. So,
Tell us about MOPEC.
MOPEC is it's the agency that certifies police officers, and
Right.
so we have to meet MOPEC standards.
Mhm.
So we're not really lowering any standards or anything like that. We're just trying to make the playing field even by giving out veterans preference points. I mean, lowering the veterans preference points and giving out city residents points, because they still must achieve a passing score on the test. They still must pass a physical fitness test. So the standards aren't being lowered. We're just making the playing field even.
And so the way I noticed that working was, for example, if someone with the military preference points with a score of 45 on an exam, and someone else scored a 50 on an exam that did not have the military preference point, that person that scored the 50 in essence should be hired, but for the 10 preference points given to the person that scored the 45, that now puts them up to a 55 as opposed to just a 50.
Right.
And now they're on the second sheet, so
right.
That is,
and by law, we have to hire the veteran. This all falls under the Patriot Act. And that's what it all falls under, the veterans preference points and everything like that. And
shout out to thank you for your service to the veterans. So we're not anti-veterans, but we are talking about equity.
Exactly. Equity.
Yeah. So Celeste Overton Morris, what partnerships have been developed and implemented that encourage officers to engage with community organizations like the Camp Curtin YMCA or Boys and Girls Clubs?
We have officers that go out there, when they have like different events up at the Y. They have like shoot around nights and different things like that. We have officers that that just go up there to just mentor kids, and we have officers, Corporal Chapman. He goes up there. He uses the weight room, and he's a resource up there, for the younger generations and different things like that. We go to the Boys and the Girls Club with Blake Lynch up to the Y. We have the PAL that interacts with everything too. So we have programs there, that we try to mesh with our youth.
Right. And I know, so now that was
another thing that we're doing. I don't mean to cut you off. Is that the North League field up by the lake, Italian Lake.
Yeah.
That's owned by the military base up there. And I'm in the process of talking to them so that the city can take over at their field, so we can have a North League baseball field, for our kids here. Yes.
Great. Got to take this one. It's coming in from my mama. Got to take this one. So Miss Bernadine Woodley asked the question, how often are police body cams reviewed, and can the officer cut it off at will? I present this question after seeing deplorable footage on Facebook and how those incidents are handled. So just in terms of body cams, once they're activated, are they allowed to be turned off, turned back on? Is that fact that they're turned off and on captured as well?
Yes, if they're cut off and cut back on, that throws up a red flag. And, we look at all the footage and we want to know why, they cut their body cams off, and if we don't like the footage leading up to, their body cam being cut off, then they have serious questions that they got to answer.
So does that automatically spur like some type of internal investigation?
Okay.
Yes. All right. Okay.
Yes.
And is that conducted internally or at the county level, at the AG's level? I mean,
it's internally. If it could lead to something criminal, we'll ship it over to the county.
Okay. All right. Okay. Martha Everett Brown, shout out to Turner Memorial Missionary Baptist Church. Okay. Are there any social workers in the police department?
As far as social workers, you mean like that
work with you, or professional social worker professionals? Yes,
we have a lady from the county. She's a social worker. She's in charge of victim witness. She's responsible for trying to get people who don't have the insurance. When a tragedy happens to a loved one, getting them funds to get buried and different things like that. So yes, we do have social workers there.
Okay. All right. Once again, call-in number is 717-903-8760. Let me ask you this. You had, children, they're mature adults now. How was it for them growing up? Have they expressed to you, young men in particular, how it was for them living with their father in law enforcement, being law enforcement professional? And how did that make you feel?
That's funny because we were just talking about that back when I was living up on 3rd Street in the 2200 block. My kids, they were small, and then we used to have like family functions, cookouts in the backyard and stuff like that. And it seems like that every time we had something like that, here comes somebody at the door. They wanted to surrender to me or something like that. And they would just look at each other all strange. And I remember we were out at the East Mall. We were at McDonald's eating, in the courtyard there,
Mm-hmm.
and this here one guy, he had just gotten out of jail, and he was with his friends, and he kept looking at me and my boys, and so he started walking over to me, and I told my kids, I said, listen, I need for you guys to get up and just walk off, regardless of what happens, just keep walking, and just go to the police station, Sweater Township, and they're like, no, we ain't going nowhere.
So
they're like, no, we're not going anywhere. And you met my kids.
Oh,
my one son is big.
Yeah.
He played college football and stuff like that. My other son, he's sort of built like me, smallish and stuff like that. But he's a military sergeant, intelligence officer, and I just hired him, so he's into his 2nd year on the job. He's in the National Guard. But it was fun for them. It was an interesting time for them. It gave them a different outlook on life. Seeing everything that I was going through, and I always told them, you know what, regardless of what somebody does, you have to respect that person because he's a person too, and you can't judge that person unless you're walking in at that person's shoes. So they understood that. So it was just interesting.
So you talk about individuals coming to your house to surrender to you. I mean, I can remember a time where, there was an individual who would only surrender to you, that had been wanted, and what is that feeling like? I know as an educator, it's one of those things that when I have a younger person in kindergarten or, 8th grade or 12th grade, and he or she, they go off, they get married. I haven't seen them for 10 years. And then I see them in their, with a family or their pastors. Shout out to Josh Robinson. It's one of those aha moments for me. I guess, is there an aha moment when somebody who is wanted surrenders to you? What is that like? I mean, these are some people that have run for like, crimes, and on a run, and then they trust you enough. What does that say to you? How does that make you feel?
It's a double-edged sword. I'm honored, that they trust me the way that they trust me. I'm also saddened, because, for some reason, they got in trouble and they did what they did, and they're mostly like, young men or young women. I didn't have people as far away as Texas surrender to me. I had people from other agencies around here surrender to me. I'm honored, that people trust me the way that they trust me, and they feel comfortable doing that. But it's an interesting moment. I just, I don't know what to say about it.
Sometimes it leaves you speechless.
It does.
I wouldn't. I can't even put myself in your shoes on that one. So that's why I asked you the question. I didn't have to answer it. I just posed the question. Is there anything that you would like people to know about you that we haven't touched on as of yet, as we begin to take some of our final questions and wind down? Are there certain things that you would like to leave with people? I mean, we'll see, and we're here at this podcast in perpetuity, and they'll be able to go back and hear this and to watch this. But when we see a Black Lives Matter protest down at the Capitol, and we see all these officers, but then we see you go over and shake hands with, the protesters, and that was not something that was viewed in 49 other states. What are some of the things that you would like the people to know about you? Your legacy of service. You would like that to be what to the city of Harrisburg?
I would like the citizens of Harrisburg to know that, me coming, from the city, me coming from the city school district, me coming from, I was fortunate enough to have both of my parents, to have the influence in my life, but I've always believed in like public service, and I always, try to serve the citizens of Harrisburg and surrounding areas the best that I can. I want them to know that everything, that I did, that I did it, because I wanted to make Harrisburg a safer place and a better place. I want them to know that mistakes were made along the way, that I'm not perfect, but I'm still trying, I'm still evolving, I'm still learning, and I want to leave this place a better place for people coming after me, like our young people. I want to leave this place a better place, for them. And I also want them to know that anything that you put your mind to, you got to have a blueprint, you got to have a plan. But anything that you want to do, you can do it. If you put forth the right effort. And a lot of times, you're going to come across failure, but don't let failure stop you. Let failure motivate you and let failure make you better, you can make it. You can make it. You can make it.
I know, and I'm surprised my mom didn't say anything about. We were talking about the '60s and things. Is there anything you want to say about the '60s? How you look then, as opposed to how you look now? I almost brought a picture. I'm just saying.
Yes, during the '60s, I had an afro. We used to have our hair braided and stuff like that. We used to walk around. But we always had on belts. We always had on belts, because if we didn't have on belts back then, our fathers would whip the living crap out of us, But, I can see the parallel in the '60s and what's going on right now, And like I said earlier, no matter how much things change, they're still the same.
Yeah.
It's been about 50 years since the '60 riots, and I saw what happened all across this nation this past summer. I can see the parallel with the '60 riots and stuff like that, And I want to say to the young people of today, that you have a lot going for you. You have a lot of social media platforms. Use those social media platforms wisely. Use it to your benefit. Support each other, help each other, and start going to Black colleges. Support Black colleges. All of our good athletes go to these here Division I schools and make these here schools rich. And they should be going to Black colleges. And I don't mean that they're in a prejudiced way. Mm-hmm. I mean, that in a way, where we can save our Black colleges and become more of a force in this nation.
Shout out to South Carolina State University. Got a great year out of me. 93. So I'll just say, Seat at the Table, hosted by Karl Singleton. We're going to continue to bring you decision makers and those influential influencers here at the table for the community to see. Our communities have been yearning for this. Special shout out again to the Lewis brothers, Craig and Conrad, for creating such a safe and Black-owned business space for us to all be able to come to. Their counterpart, good brother Chad Scott, can't thank you enough. Shout out to Michelle Green, always in the house. Nothing but love. Appreciate you, Chief. Commissioner Carter, Harrisburg's finest, being here, seated at the table. Let's work.